We are very lucky to have this wonderful panel talking about the rise of Instagram food trends and insta-restaurants. And with me now are Alexa Matthews, founder of Eating NYC, Kristen Tomlan, and I'm going to let them all introduce themselves in a minute, but the founder and CEO of Dough Confections, and you may have had some earlier today, or you may have been to the store, which is incredible. And Remy Park is the founder of Veggiekins and a vegan nutritionist as well. So first, I'm just going to kick it over to you guys to kind of give a quick top line, who you are, what you're about. Go.
So I'm Alexa. I'm the founder of Eating NYC. It is a food blog and website. I started a little over 5 years ago. I have a background in hospitality and PR. Now I get to work with brands varying across all different sectors. I'm very excited to be here today. So, yeah.
My name's Kristen Tomlan. I'm the founder and CEO of Dough Confections, which specializes in edible and bakeable cookie dough. I started the brand, 4 years ago out of my love for baking and my obsession with eating raw cookie dough. And it started as a line of e-commerce cookie dough that I was shipping nationwide and then has expanded into retail. We have a line of consumer packaged goods, and I'm launching my cookbook this October called Hello Cookie Dough.
Very exciting. We're all going to be buying it.
So you can make cookie dough in your home kitchen.
Hi, my name is Remy Park. I'm the founder of Veggiekins blog. It's been about 2 years now that I've been doing it, and it's basically a recipe resource with vegan and gluten-free recipes. So I cover vegan recipes, very specific, but definitely a lot of content creation, and I love trying different restaurants in the city. So you'll see a little bit of that, some lifestyle stuff, and a little bit of nutrition.
Excellent. So it's really great that we kind of have representatives from each of these different areas for this. So I'm going to start with a question for you, Kristen, about how social media has impacted your business, and as a business owner, what have you seen with the rise in the popularity of Instagram as like a thing, like people coming to Instagram?
Yeah, so when I started the business in 2015, I didn't have any money, and I didn't have certainly any money to spend on advertising or PR. And so what I started with was a really great product, and what I used was social media to help build a following. And there were so many people that connected with this idea of eating cookie dough. It was this really nostalgic moment for people to indulge and enjoy something sweet, and they naturally shared it because they connected with it. And that was my initial way to just get the word out and connect with customers. Since I started, 4 years ago, we've been able to build our following, and that continues to be a platform for us that we, announce different things. We speak to our customers every day, and it's been able to really be such a valuable resource to explain to the world what we're doing and why we're unique.
And we were talking for a minute before this about the fact that you actually designed this space with an eye towards Instagram, which I find to be really, really interesting, and I think there's more and more of that going on. Can you give us a little bit?
Yeah, so when my background is design and experience design. So when I was designing the store, I wanted it to be an experience. And what I had experienced with food and what I had seen other people doing with their cookie dough was taking photos of it. So I wanted to make sure that there were moments in the environment that people could stop and pause, and it could be a background or it could be a moment where they can get a great picture. Because in social media, all of you guys know, people are sharing the best parts of their lives and their days, and dough and what they're eating is just a small part of that. So I wanted the interior to be friendly for taking photos. So even the lights that we chose, are 5,000 kelvins, which are obviously daylight. If for those of you guys that use specific lighting, we chose those lights for a reason, because we knew people were going to be photographing their food, and we wanted it to be displayed as best as possible.
And on the other side of the business, as influencers and content creators, how has this influx of more and more people using Instagram to, in the food space specifically, what have you guys noticed about the last couple of years and the way that that's changed and the impact it's had?
Yeah, I mean, since I started my account, I've seen the restaurant industry as a whole transform tremendously. Everything from the design aspects of a restaurant to the menu, to the actual dishes that people choose on the menu has all been changed kind of with social media in mind. And, you know, we've spoken about this before. Some restaurants even just open for social media, right? They're thinking they're going to create something kind of viral. So I think every aspect, and even having worked in PR, I've seen that industry change as well. Whereas before, PR and marketing firms were going towards traditional media, and they've had to create departments that deals with influencers, and having a whole influencer department of getting influencers in and kind of changing the whole mindset of the value of traditional media versus influencers.
Why do you think it is, and I'll throw this one to you, Remy, that so many people on a mass scale seem to trust influencer recommendations in a way that's different from traditional brands?
I think you could look at it in two different ways. The first being that you are also interested in grabbing a shot that looks good for your feed too. I think that's definitely a pull for some people. But also there's a difference between, I guess, advertising in the traditional sense and influencers in the sense that you're following real people. You've got stories to interact with them. You can DM them and ask them, did you really like that pizza? And I think most people are pretty honest, because you would never want to risk someone going to try something and not liking it to kind of put your reputation on the line. So I think in that sense, you know that if someone's vouching for something, either being really photogenic or tasting really good, you kind of have that trust in them as just a person, like a friend.
And that's actually a good segue to this question about how you work with restaurants and brands. And I will also mention that Kristen and Alexa actually have a collaboration right now. I don't know if that's something you guys want to mention. But the bigger question of working with brands and restaurants and how to sort of develop those relationships and make sure that you're not crossing that line where you're still trustworthy.
For sure. So I guess I could mention our collabs. So they just launched ice cream, and we came up with an awesome flavor called Campfire Crunch, which is a s'mores-inspired ice cream sundae, and it's going to be live at Dough all month. And we just launched a giveaway like an hour ago. So if you follow both of us and enter the contest, you can win your own DIY campfire cookie set. So
Yes.
yep.
So go do
That's
that
it,
like
right?
now.
Or you can go in the store all month and get it. So really excited about that.
Yeah, and we work with influencers in a number of different capacities. We love collaborating with influencers like Alexa. But I think the idea for me when I was, thinking about working with influencers and trying to get my product or have people come in is, for me, it's always been, I want it to be organic. I don't want them to post about my brand or my product unless they enjoy it and unless they think their followers will enjoy it. It's certainly, I think everybody, what we've been saying all day is authenticity, 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 and it doesn't make sense if the influencer isn't into it for them to really post it. So for me, I've always approached influencers from a business perspective as, a true partnership and making sure that they believe in what I'm doing and they want to share it with their followers, and I'm certainly not forcing them to do anything that they don't want to do.
I think to add to that, it is definitely something that's a little bit tougher. So as someone who primarily produces their own content, I'm posting my own recipes for the most part. When I am approached by a restaurant, I'm very wary just because even if you're given a free meal, for example, and there's no obligation to post, to me it feels like I still feel a little bit obligated to share a little something about it, but I know that there's a risk that I may not like the food. And at that point, what do I do? Do I post about it? Do I not? So for me, honestly, a lot of the time, I would prefer to just go in organically on my own, pay for the food, have my own experience, and then if I love it, maybe I approach the restaurant again and say, hey, this would be awesome if we could work together. I'm a big fan and customer, and that to me is probably the most organic way it can happen. But I really appreciate the way that you mentioned you work with influencers, because I think I have been pitched like, hey, we'll give you a free meal, but you have to post about this recipe, or sorry, our restaurant, and you just never know how it's going to go down. So,
yeah, I completely agree with that. I think, people really look to me for where to eat in New York, and, they go, I know people are counting on me to go to a restaurant right away and let them know how it is, and put a lot of pressure on myself in that sense, that I feel it's my duty to only be going to great restaurants. So like you said, I'm super wary about where I go. I would say I accept maybe 1% of the invitations that I get, just because, you know, it is really important to do your research and kind of just go to those places that you know you're going to like and you know are going to resonate with your followers. So I think being selective is really important. Really important.
Remy, as a content creator who really does a lot of recipe development, where have you seen your personal food content kind of go viral, and why do you think that is? Are there any particular trends?
So actually, funny you say that. I think cookie dough is definitely a big food trend. There are definitely specific dishes that I kind of know that I can lean on that will perform better than others. So kind of a funny one, but avocado toast I know will perform really, really well kind of no matter what. Even if it's a sloppy picture, I didn't have much time to put into it, avocado will perform, and I know that. So sometimes if I'm like, oh man, I'm in a rut, like throw an avocado toast picture out there, you know? But I've noticed things like that, and I think it's really fun to look at your own content and see what resonates with your audience, because as much as I love creating what I love, sometimes you do need to kind of listen to your audience, and they're the best feedback that you have. If you see something performing well, is it because it's a trend, or is it because that's what your audience wants to see more from you? So a couple of other things that have been interesting are like blue food and blue spirulina, which is interesting because I don't think a lot of people really use that for health purpose. I think it's more of like the coloring, which is fine. I think that's awesome. But really just identifying, I guess, the buckets or the content pieces that perform really well. I try not to just post along those lines, because then my feed would just be blue cookie dough nonstop. But it's good to know, and it's interesting to see that even health food items can be things that go viral.
So we were talking a little bit earlier about the rise of niche categories, and in particular, I think both of you are your success in these specific areas. It's vegan, or it's cookie dough, or it's something else, as opposed to the general thing, although doing a lot more food stuff, you know, all restaurant things is also working really well for Eating NYC. But I'm wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about the niche. Like, is there anything too niche? Do you think that things are more appealing when they're the more specific and tailored they are to one particular interest?
I think for us, it's about picking something and then doing it really well and knowing it really well. So kind of being the authority in all things cookie dough. So cookie dough is at our core, but that doesn't mean that's our only product. We have kind of this wheel around it and these different parts of our brand that kind of center around cookie dough, which for me, it comes from a place of love and passion, and I've been able to use it as an extension for many other things. I think it's kind of like, you know how they say like diners are restaurants without opinions or points of view. It's like if you serve every single thing under the sun, is it really going to be amazing every single time? So for me, I just went with my passion and really made sure that, you know, the cookie dough and the dishes we are serving are wonderful and you know, great to share and can have multiple different uses.
And do you ever find that customers actually spend more money at the restaurant trying more things because they've either seen them on Instagram or they want to take as many pictures as possible?
Yeah, so sometimes people come in and want to recreate a photo that they've seen on Instagram. So one of our most liked photos was when we first opened the store in 2017, and it was this cone of cookie dough that had 3 scoops, and it was snowing, and we were saying, like, we're open, come eat cookie dough in the snow. But it got a lot of likes and interest and shares, and there were people coming in trying to just recreate that moment, like standing in the middle of the street, just as I was. And so maybe, you know, they would only get 1 scoop normally, but they came in to like get that perfect shot.
They really committed to
Yeah, which like I appreciate, and luckily for us, our product lasts 3 weeks in the fridge and 3 months in the freezer. So I always say, like, take a lid, take it to go. You don't have to finish it in one sitting. And so I certainly do see people coming in to like recreate a certain thing. But we don't, the content that we put out there, and also the products that we don't develop them because of Instagram. We develop them because they're delicious and we have a reason, whether it's we're coming out with a new gluten-free product or we want to launch a new line of baked items or whatever it is, we have a real reason of why we're doing it. We're not doing it so that it looks good on Instagram. The presentation is just part of it, and we want everything that goes out of our kitchen to taste and look amazing, and people naturally share it because of that.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned people trying to recreate the exact photo. I've definitely seen that with the recipes that I share. People that make them will style them in a very similar way as like my recipe photo, which I think is really nice. It's kind of cute, and I get that. But like you said, I think it comes down to quality at the end of the day. You want to make sure it looks good, but also tastes good, and it's functional.
Yeah, if your recipe doesn't work, then it's a miss either way.
One thing I find really interesting about all of you is that to some extent you found yourselves going down these roads without necessarily expecting to monetize. I mean, you or open a store. You had, as you said, an e-com business. You did not found Eating NYC with necessarily the intention of expecting for that to be all, your full-time job. And same for you. What was the turning point where you realized, shit, this is like big, and I have something here?
For me, it was I was working in PR, and then I had worked in-house for a restaurant group, and I was kind of getting to the point where I realized that by just sitting at my desk all day, I was missing out on so many opportunities that I could have been taking, whether they were paid opportunities or press trips, and I was just getting to a point where I was like, okay, well, if I leave my job, I probably will make more money than I am just sitting here all day. So I just had to kind of take a leap of faith and leave my job, and I never looked back. But like you said, it was something that I never expected to do when I started doing this 5 years ago as just a hobby. So it's crazy.
I think mine's like a little bit of the opposite, because I left a great full-time job with benefits as a consultant, getting to travel the world and working with some really amazing brands, to jumping ship and taking my side hustle as my full-time gig, and there was no money there at all. But for me, the reason I made that decision was partially because of time. I wasn't sleeping. I was living these two lives. Every moment that I was at work, I was thinking about dough, and every moment that I was at dough, I was feeling bad about not doing the work I was supposed to do. And so I had to make a decision to either go down this path or continue with this path. I'm not the type of person that is like gonna half-ass anything. So I was all in this cookie dough business that I was starting, and I really wanted to see where it was gonna go. But yeah, at the time I wasn't making any money. I was investing a lot of money into my passion and what made me happy and what I thought could potentially be a profitable business if I was able to spend more time on it.
I think I have a similar story to Alexa. I actually started my Instagram while I was working with a nutritionist and a doctor healing from an eating disorder, and it was actually a food accountability log. So I had one follower, and that was just her, and that's it. It was supposed to be private, and I didn't connect the dots between Facebook and Instagram being one. So all my friends found it, but I loved it so much, and it was so helpful for me that I just thought I'll continue and instead just make the food look a little bit better, so that it's not something that's like, oh no, I'm so embarrassed you found it, but like, yeah, I cook lots of vegan food and it's really fun. So that's kind of how it started. And then I worked a regular corporate job, which was great for 3 months, but for me, mental health was kind of on the decline. I think it was difficult to keep up with making sure I was feeding myself, like you said, not sleeping very much. So I took a break from that for a little bit, not expecting to do this as a job, but just for my own sanity. And because I loved it, I just kept doing it. And so from there, it kind of grew. And I think circling back to your point about being very niche, at the beginning I thought, well, I'm kind of screwed because I'm vegan, and I'm also allergic to gluten, so what am I going to do? There's so few brands I can work with, such a small audience that I'm catering to. But from there, I think you can really lean into your audience, and despite being very niche, maybe I wasn't the biggest account. I mean, I'm definitely not, but because of the specialty topics that I cover, there are certain campaigns that I'll land because of that. You know, it's so niche, and they're looking for someone in that space, for example. So it has been really helpful, and that applies to anything lifestyle I do too. So from there, I could branch out to, okay, this is a vegan skincare product. This is a vegan non-toxic home cleaner. So really leaning into your brand and your niche and seeing it more of a strength versus a weakness.
Yeah, own it. Whatever it is that you do, own it.
Great advice. So the last question I want to ask, and then we're going to have time, I think, for a couple of questions from the audience. Do we have any Game of Thrones fans here? Yes. Okay, me too. And last night, I was kind of like checking out everybody's Instagram accounts, and I happened to notice that Cersei Lannister is following Remy, and then I was like, oh my God, that's the coolest thing ever.
Well, a lot of the Game of Thrones cast is vegan, I've heard, so.
But also, she didn't realize that until I mentioned
didn't.
it an hour ago, and that was pretty thrilling. So it made me kind of wonder what, if any, moment everybody has had where they realized again like how big they were getting based on who was following them.
I also think that food is something that everyone loves and can connect to. So everybody loves cookie dough. People who are vegan are all going to love vegan food. Everybody loves avocado toast. So we can all connect on that in a sense. Like even celebrities, they're just like us. They eat food, you know?
Can you ask her what's going to happen on Sunday night is my real question.
I'll have to slide into the DM.
Okay, yeah, slide into her DMs. And Kristen, how about for you? Was there sort of a celebrity moment with dough where it was game-changing?
There's been a lot of celebrity moments that I've been like picking my jaw off the floor, like when I met Chrissy Teigen and John walking Luna down the street outside of Dough, was like one of the coolest things. And really early on, actually, when I first launched, when I was like running this business out of my home kitchen, the first like month, I got several orders from this person that I wasn't even paying attention to their name because I was just like in the trenches and like just trying to keep my head above water. And after about the third or fourth order, when I was coordinating a pickup or a drop-off, I realized that it was Stacey London, and I was like kind of fangirling, growing up watching What Not to Wear my whole life and TLC. I emailed her and I was like, is this the Stacey London? And she said yes, and she was a huge fan, and she's been a huge fan ever since. I actually have a really great relationship with her, and because of her dietary restrictions, she's gluten-free and vegan, we came up with a flavor specifically for her that we still have on our menu that's in my cookbook. And celebrities, they're just like us, you really can connect with people, and having a relationship with her today is still really amazing. So yeah, there's been many moments, but
Cool. All right. And did you want to add anything or no? We're going to kick it over. I know we got some Drew Barrymore following you. I mean, I'd brag about that. So let's do one or two quick questions from the audience. Do we have a mic somewhere? Yes, we do. Yes. Hi, Lindsay.
Hey, so I'm just curious to know if you guys have any quick tips for, like, if you go to a restaurant, there's like cute food, you want to take a picture of it, but sometimes it just doesn't turn out the way that you want it to turn out. So what are some quick tips that you guys use for just kind of like elevating a food picture to make it more photogenic and more, I don't know, like good for Instagram?
For me, I would always say to sit by a window if possible. I think natural lighting is the most important part in capturing a great photo of food or anything for that matter. So I would say try to go when it's light out, ask to sit by a window. They'll usually say yes if you're asked politely. In terms of editing, I like to use Snapseed. I don't like to over-edit my photos, but a little kind of fixing up always goes a long way. So.
I would say even as far as to go outside if you have to for lighting.
Yes, sometimes you need to do that.
Yeah, like I'm that person, but it's worth it if you get the photo, especially if it's something that you're doing that's branded or for a partnership. Like that's your job.
Just
don't
carry
feel
the
weird
whole
about
plate
it.
outside.
Yeah,
Right.
Definitely. And another thing that I do sometimes, if you don't feel uncomfortable, is I'll actually ask the person either scooping my dough or serving my ice cream. I'll say, hey, like, would you mind making it look, it's best because I'm going to take a photo and tag you guys. But it's, for them, it's free marketing too. So just ask nicely.
Awesome. Do we have one more? Yes, but we need to get you a mic. Right here.
My name is Tamar at Candidly Delicious by Tamar, and my question is actually mostly for Remy, because I'm also a recipe creator, and I get sent just randomly products that people, obviously, there's an inherent expectation that you're going to post something about that product. So how do you handle a product that gets sent to you that you don't actually like?
So if you're comfortable, I honestly feel like it's really helpful for a brand to hear what it is that you don't like about it. I know it seems scary to share feedback that isn't positive, but I think it's really helpful for the brand because you are such a voice in food, especially if you're a recipe developer, to share with them that it's probably really constructive for them. But I think also, too, then they need to understand that you don't want to put your voice on the line and your reputation and your credibility. You know your audience, you know what you like to eat, and if it doesn't align with your recipe, I think it's perfectly fine to be clear about that. I used to say, like, cookies don't pay your rent. So even if someone wants to send you something, and you can even tell them before they send it to you, just say, hey, thank you so much for sending. I just wanted to clarify. I can't guarantee anything. So if you still want to send it, feel free. Otherwise, I totally understand. I think that's awesome to do, too.
Well, cookies don't pay the rent, but cookie dough is a totally different story. I think we're going to end on that note. Thank you guys so much.